Here we are for another episode, and today is going to be a good one. We are joined from a guest that started listening to us and just loved the podcast and started absorbing it. She's coming to us from New Zealand, different time zone. So Annie Oxborough, is that correct? And Annie has a book out that's for adults, but written like it's for children, called Where the Fuck Is My Mother? So we can't wait to talk to you. Welcome.
Yay, thanks for having me. I'm so excited. I love you gals.
We're so happy to have you. I love having a fangirl.
Oh my God, you too. I can't get enough, and I've nearly run out, so I can't wait to listen to my own.
No.
Like, hurry up, do more.
Well, and they'll be coming faster now, so,
Yeah, we're weekly now, so.
It's so exciting. Good on you.
Every Tuesday or Wednesday for you, I guess it would be.
Yeah.
It's a big commitment, but wow, it's great.
Thank you. Well, we want to just dig in. So tell us your story, Annie.
Oh, that's the one, eh? Well, I found out that I was adopted blissfully unaware till I was 7. And by accident, in the back of the car, I had 3 older sisters, and they were all like a year apart from each other, but then 4 years apart from me.
And were they the natural born kids?
No, all of us were adopted.
Okay.
But I didn't know that. And you know how you hear all these stories too of, I always knew something was wrong, and I never felt good, and I never felt like anything was right. But anyway, I was in the back of the car, and I was behind my mother's head, staring at the back of her head. The car was crammed, going up to the shops after school. And one of my sisters said something about adoption. And I was like, what does that mean? And I think Mum had to say it in the car in front of everyone. And it was like, you've got to be fucking kidding. You're not my mother. And she was like, oh, well, I'm not your mother, but I'm looking after you. And, your mother couldn't have you or whatever. And I was like, oh my God, you're not my mother. And I remember just feeling intensely cold, like, when the blood runs completely cold through your whole body, and you almost feel like you've gone white with shock. And then I looked at my sisters and thought, oh my God, you're not my sister. And then you're not my sister. And you're not my sister. And then I went home in my head and went, oh my God, you're not my father. You're not my grandma. You're not my auntie. You're not my cousin. And I just felt so betrayed and so angry and so confused. Have you girls ever seen the movie The Truman Show?
Yes.
Well, I remember seeing that one day and went, that's me. Everyone's been laughing at me and looking at me for years. And I just feel like a fucking idiot, like a fool, like I've been tricked and betrayed. And I've just never gotten over the rage of it, really. But I think what happens too is you have to be good. So you can't complain or grizzle or be sad. So as soon as Mum got me home and undid all the grocery, she took me into my bedroom and gave me that bullshit letter that you get from, the social welfare agency that wrote it up for you, the contract. And it was just empty, vacuous shit. It could have been about anyone, the fairy story that you get. Your mother looked like this, and she was beautiful, and she loved you, and your father was into drumming and science, and he loved you. Well, where are they? What happened?
Yeah.
And that's all you get. And then it was basically in my household, all the other girls knew, and they all seemed really fine. Like they ran in a pack together because they were only a year apart and 4 years apart from me. So I'm stuck with Mum, and Mum's a psychiatric lunatic. Like, she's mental health issues. I don't know. You can't get anyone more nutty as her.
And how did that manifest?
Well, she was anorexic. So when she was, I think, about 8, her father went out in a sailing yacht and never came back. He drowned. Mum didn't want her, so she started beating her. And then she wanted to get married to a certain boy from church, and her mother said she couldn't. So she forced her to marry my adoptive father. He had bipolar. I mean, the house was just like a lunatic asylum. And then you've got these 3 sisters that are all tight and they're all happy and they're not bothered by anything.
I'm guessing the whoever placed all of you for adoption didn't do a lot of vetting of.
No.
I mean, it just sounds like, how do you place all these kids in with
Mental
these
illness.
two people? Yeah.
Just in New Zealand back then, in the baby scoop era, they were handing out 87 children a week. And they didn't vet you. They didn't really, I mean, all I heard, and this is so disrespectful,
87 children a week.
Yeah. And they're all lined up in their little cots, all in the hospital, all by themselves, all medicated, because I got my records back and I was medicated because I was crying, obviously. And you just think, no one came to check on me. No one ever came to check on us. No one ever from the state came to see if we were okay. You just basically, Mum said to me, oh, well, I just wrote my name down, and they tried to match eye color and hair color so that you wouldn't feel too odd in the family. That's what she said. And I'm like,
oh my gosh.
Wow.
And then my
like puppies.
Come on. Yes.
Yeah, my next sister up, she had blonde hair and blue eyes like me. And everyone's like, oh, you look just the same. And Mum would go, yes, they do. Yep. And I'm like, you fucking liar. Seriously, you Christian, religious, horrible woman, you whack me and put me in my room constantly for lying. But then you lie to my face all the time. You know,
and you were really home to suffer a lot of this on your own.
Yeah. Well, then she became so addicted to me because I was an angel sent from heaven, apparently, to save her. So that was awesome. And so she called me Angela, and I was just her little gift from God, she kept calling me. And Dad was really sick, and he started getting sicker and sicker. So he went into Carrington, which is one of our mental hospitals now, and had electric shock therapy. And he was just mental. And I don't know, my sisters were just busy all the time together. And I was just stuck with Mum, and she was so ill. She just clung onto me like shit to a rug. And I don't know, every single thing, it was just me and her, and I had to go to church, and I had to go twice a week, you know, on Sunday, and I had to go to Bible study on Wednesday night, and every holiday we had, I had to go to church camp. And it was just intoxicating. She'd come into my bedroom and lie on my bed and watch TV with me, and she wouldn't let me alone. It was like this convolvulus weed wrapped around me.
Did you feel suffocated?
Oh, more smothered than you could imagine. But you can't be ungrateful. You can't be unkind. You have to say, oh, thank you for having me, because I might get given away again. So I've better be good, right?
Yeah.
But I hated her, and I hated my life. So I basically just became two people. So I had one facade for my mates and at school, and I had another one for home, and I just played the game. And, you know, I'm sort of teaching at the moment, and I help with trauma and stuff, but it's all disassociation, and adoptees suffer from that because we've got nowhere else to go but in our heads to get away.
Yeah,
That's
people go away and yes, it is. And they go away and
lived my entire life in my head. So yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. It's a nicer place than the reality. Yeah. I remember when I split in two that day in the car, and I got home, and from that day on, I just basically observed my family as if they did not belong to me. So the disconnect was incredible. And I used to sit at the table and just look at each of them and study them and go, you're not my sister. Oh, look at you. Wonder where you come from. You're funny. Aren't you a bitch? And then I'd go, my dad, look at you, you mental old bastard. What happened to you? And then I'd just be like, when can I leave? But I can't leave, right? No one can. I can't. I start cooking because Mum's anorexic. So I take over cooking for 6, 7. Because her food is just boiled and horrific, and she's mad. And the Bible comes out every night. We've got a swear box in the middle of the table, and guess who fills that up constantly with pocket money?
Yeah.
I just didn't fit in.
It's so impactful at 7 that you can viscerally feel this still, how that felt.
Oh, I was so awake because it was like I was thrown off a cliff.
Yeah.
And I used to go into the bedroom and write suicide letters in my kids' books and hide them all. And then 3 weeks later, I'd rip them all up in case someone found them. And then I'd write them all again, you know, because I just didn't want to be there, but I didn't know where to go. And you can't find your mother. There's no clues in that document. You know, she had red hair and bluish greenish eyes, and I looked for her everywhere. just everywhere you go, you just look for her, don't you? And
Yeah.
it's just so heartbreaking. How can you do that to a child? It's
Yeah.
insane.
Annie, did you find your birth mother ever?
Yeah. So what happened was you have to wait until you're 20 here, because I was in the closed adoption in that era.
Mm-hmm.
And open adoption is just a lie. I'd like to clear that up as well, because you've still, if you do an open adoption, you've still got no rights if you're the parent. If the adoptee parents say you can't see them, you can't see them. You know, you can't go to a judge. There's no law. So it's just a made up lie to get more babies off them. I found my original birth certificate. I had to apply for that. I was already a mother by this time though, because I copied my I hate saying birth mother, but I copied my mother and I got pregnant, and that went down like a cold cup of sick in my house. So I basically got kicked out of the house, and my mother.
Oh, you were 20?
I was 18.
18.
And you got kicked out.
Still living at home. Well, she wanted me to go and have an abortion. So she booked me in for an abortion, this religious Christian lady who couldn't have babies. So the irony in that's quite triggering, eh?
Yeah.
So I ran away. I basically got in my car and I met this lady from church in Hamilton, which is, I don't know, about a 3-hour drive from where I live. And she had a caravan in her garden. So I went and lived there.
Mm-hmm.
And my boyfriend at the time didn't want a baby, and he didn't want to get married, and he didn't really want to have a commitment. So I just told both of them to fuck off. And I just went alone and hung out by myself for a while. And then mum finally kind of came around. And then in the end, it turns out that she smothered my child. So as soon as he was born, she swapped that bullshit smothering and put it onto this poor kid, my son Jordan, and kind of proceeded to ruin his life. So she was mental.
And you lived at home with Jordan with her.
So no, I got married because I had to do the right thing and be a good girl. So basically forced Dean to marry me, which was awesome. And
that worked out well.
it was just so good. And
awesome.
Yeah. So, yeah.
You're awesome.
And so I stuck that out for 18 years, believe it or not. I had another son.
That's a long time.
Yeah, well, I wanted to prove her wrong, this stupid bitch. So I waited till she died till I left him.
And you had another son in there? I heard you say that.
Yeah, he's awesome. He's like the autumn leaf that came along, and he's just rock and roll. I love them both. They're really cool. And now I've got a grandson too, so that's pretty cool. But he lives in Japan. And one of the reasons that I want to I want to redact my adoption, and I'm going to our New Zealand Parliament at the moment.
I saw that. Yes. Yeah. You're changing the narrative and the laws down there.
Yeah, and I'm going to help hopefully hundreds of other people here. I think there's 110,000 people adopted in New Zealand. So I want to try and shape that up and get our rights back so that legally we can have our lineage back that belongs to us, because you can't scrub a baby clean and give it a new DNA footprint. Who do these people think they are?
Yeah.
And it's still the law under the 1955 Adoption Act. It's archaic and barbaric. And
it really is. Yeah.
I'm going to whack them.
Good for you. Really?
We were way back though, weren't we? We were way back. And I went off on a rantan, didn't I?
No. This is how these go. It's great. So going back, you're 20 and you're having your baby, and then you decide, or you have your baby, and then you decide I'm gonna search.
Yeah, so you're not allowed anything until you're 20. So I applied to the court and got my original birth certificate. Obviously, it doesn't have father's details because they always left dad out. He got away scot-free, which is
always.
Yeah, but his name's Scott. So it's
that can be your next book.
Your story's just filled with irony.
I know, it's so funny. It's like scot-free. Hello. And and then I still remind him of that all the time. So then it's so hard to find them because basically it's just her maiden name, right? And she's obviously got married because that's what they did too. She had to be a good girl. And I've got to go take a bus with a baby. I've got no money because obviously I'm a little bit too young to have a baby and I don't really have a job. And so that's awesome as well. or a career. And off I go on the bus to find my mother through the electoral rolls, which you just have to hunt with a pen and paper and write down all these numbers of all the clerks in the book that you can possibly think that might live in that area. And then you've got to go home with all these numbers and sit there and ring all these.
What year was this?
Oh God. Well, what am I now? I'm 52. And I
Like
found out
1990 or something.
Yeah. And so it was a toll call, and so each call cost me like $1.70, and I had no money, and so I could only call like 3 or 4 a week. And then you've got to pluck up the courage, because what if it's the right call? So I talked to this company in Australia called Jigsaw. I don't know if you've heard of them.
No.
Oh, that's so cool. And they used to be in New Zealand, but our government stomped them out as well, because our government's retarded over here. We're so inbred. Seriously. Sometimes I'd rather have Trump, and that's saying something.
That is saying something.
That was a joke. Well, please don't push it. And then so I have to ring and ring and ring. So it takes me, I don't know, a month and a half. And finally I get this horrible woman, and I only know my mother's name is Susan Mary Clark, right? So I ring up and I says, "Is Susan there?" And she, "What? Who are you? Who wants to know or something?" And I went, "Oh, I'm a friend from school, and we've fallen out, and I just want to find out where she is, and I haven't seen her for years." And she went, "Oh, well, her name's Sue." And I went, "Oh, okay, lovely. It's lovely, isn't it?" Well, this is obviously my grandma. She sounds so attractive, warm
and cuddly.
Oh my God, I can't wait to meet you. And anyway, she gives me her phone number, and I can't ring her because now I'm terrified, right? I've found her. What am I going to do? I'm going to bust into this woman's life and ruin it, or fuck her whole family up, or is she going to reject me? Like, how do you do it? And what do you say? So I don't know. I waited and waited, and I think I had back then I couldn't afford wine either, so I had a cask on top of the fridge, cooked sir, beautiful, cheap. So I think I drank probably half a bladder of that one night, and just decided I just needed to rip the Band-Aid off and do it. I'm going mental thinking about it. And so
liquid courage.
It's awful, isn't it? It's the most horrific experience. And anyway, her stupid husband answered. And he was equally as grumpy as her. And he was just like, "Oh, her name's Sue," or something. And I went, "Oh, all right. Really?
Better start calling her Sue."
Yeah, her name's not Susan, is it? And like, "Who are you?" And I had to say a friend from school or whatever. And anyway, she hops on the phone. "Hello?" And I'm like, "It's me." It's like, and she's like, who is it? And I went, "It's your daughter." And she just went, "Oh my God, I've been waiting for this phone call all of my life."
Aww.
So cool.
Yeah.
And she was just so sweet and awesome. And the first thing she said was, "Are you okay?"
Oh,
kind of,
yeah, not really.
Yeah, no, it's great. But I was talking about this the other day too, and it's like I couldn't tell her that I'd had a bad life because I didn't want to make her feel bad either.
Mm-hmm.
You know how you carry that? You're carrying everyone's grief, and everyone's
the adoptee carries everything.
A lot of responsibility.
Both families, yeah.
Yep. And then
this
you try
infant is just burdened with everyone else's feelings but their own.
Yeah.
That's it. And then she was like, "Oh, look, I'm married and I've got 3 children." And I'm like, "Oh my God, that's so cool." And I said, "Well, I've got a son. So you're a grandma?" And she was beside herself. And she's like, "Oh, we just have to meet." So she had to get off the phone and tell her children about me. And apparently they were all really cool and quite excited. So that was great.
How old were her kids at the time?
God, they were like
they were still at home, so
8, 10, 13.
Mm-hmm.
So one boy and two girls, which was great. And the oldest girl was called Angela, and my name was called Angela when I was,
Yeah.
taken crazy lunatic. So that was weird as well.
What
But-
what were the circumstances of
Yeah.
your birth and relinquishment?
So she basically fell in love with Scott Free, and
Scot-free.
she had a whirlwind romance with him, and she's still in love with him, and I'm pretty sure,
Mm-hmm.
they've got this love for each other that will never dissipate. And he they were just too young, and my grandma, the one that was so vulgar on the phone, well, she turned out to be the biggest monster God created.
Yeah.
There is God. And I know there isn't, so anyway, moving on. But she was horrible, and she called me an it, and she said, you have to get rid of it, and that's the end of it. And she locked Mum in a cupboard in Helensville, way up north, for the whole of the 9 months. And basically,
It's just abuse.
yeah, but didn't let her go out, didn't let her see anyone, sent her to the hospital, and basically dragged her home by her hair afterwards. And
Oh, Jesus.
and that was the end of that. So when Mum met me, she went to see Grandma, and Grandma said, well, I don't care. She's not a member of our family, so you can forget about it.
Yeah.
Forget about it. I'm still in it. And Mum said, well, I want to put her on the family tree. And she said, nah. But it's even weirder because in their family, one of her daughters adopted a child, and she's so welcome in their family, but I'm the adopted one, and I'm not welcome.
You're the biological sent out, and you're not welcome.
Yeah. So that was awesome, mate. It's nice to know where you come from. And what's worse at the moment is I think I'm turning into looking like her, and I catch myself in the mirror and I'm like, fuck, I'm turning into that monster, that lady that I hate. It's terrifying. What can you do with DNA?
You can't. So she traumatized your mother to another level. I mean, just.
She traumatized her so much that when she passed away, my mum went to live in Australia. When she passed away, Mum never came home for her funeral.
Mm.
So that's how.
That says it. Yeah.
But so I just want to be clear. When you called originally and she answered the phone, was your mother living there, or
No,
you were calling for the
married,
for the phone number? Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So she would
And
have
so she was your mom was now married with kids, and
her husband basically turned out to be a giant dick. And it's really weird because Mum said to me, look, I'm still in touch with one of your dad's stepsisters, so I know how to contact him. Do you want to meet him? And I was like, oh, not really. You know how it's this weird thing, you just want to meet your mum. Hey, you want your mum, you don't want your dad. His dad's dicks. Anyway, well, my dad was a dick, my adopted dad. He was such a weirdo. And then I went, all right, humoring her. Anyway, we all met, and it was really great, and I'm so glad I did. And it was just such a lovely reunion.
Did the three of you meet together?
Yeah, all together. First time they'd seen each other since they gave me away.
Oh.
They were traumatized. He's still quite traumatized. Dad had a really bad upbringing. He was basically brought up by his grandparents. His dad was like a nasty ginger man. That's where I get my ginger from, but I've dyed it, so no one knows. And his mother was in psychiatric care as well, so he kind of got bandied around, and I think he abandoned me because he just didn't have stable, family to bring me up. And obviously with Grandma, he couldn't fight against her.
And he loves Sue. He did love Sue. That was probably the person that he most bonded with. And then they were torn apart, and it's horrible.
Yep, that's right. So Mum basically got on a plane, went and lived in Australia, and came back home and met her stupid husband. And then Dad went up north and got married, and he had 3 children. So I've got a brother and 2 sisters, and that brother is called Sparrow, and he's the one that did the illustrations on my book. So we've had this bond, through that. So Dad basically had me, gave me away, had Sparrow, and didn't acknowledge that he was his father, and left him down in Ponsonby with this other dude saying, oh, he's your dad, this guy called Reese. So Sparrow has had this horrible upbringing, and at 12 he found out that Scott Free was actually his dad. So Scott got away free twice, didn't he?
Yeah.
And now yeah.
How's the relationship with Scott now with your dad?
I gave him a really hard time for a bit there, because he was turning into a bit of a negative dick. So I've given him a whack and a jandle, and then when we say a jandle over here, it means we whack someone across the face with a jandle.
Mm-hmm.
Kiwi slang. And so I don't know, he started being really negative and a little bit sort of busybodyish in my life. And one day I just remember cracking the shits at him and going, you don't own me, you don't even know me, you didn't bring me up. How dare you judge me or talk about me like that? Fuck off. So I didn't speak to him for a few years. I'm talking to him now, and he's quite grateful that I'm back in his life, but he just needs to have some respect, because you can't just give something away and then expect it to come back and start bossing it around, right?
Yeah.
Is he is he in Sparrow's life now?
Well, they're not getting on at all, because Sparrow is so traumatized from what he's done that he just can't sort of get over it.
Yeah.
And because Scott's so abandoned from his childhood, he finds it really hard to parent or connect, or, so yeah, that's a rift. But anyway, we had a lot of healing through doing my book together, because I think my story was similar to Sparrow's in one paradigm, but completely different in the other, because I was sold for $1 and he was just abandoned voluntarily with all knowledge. I reckon his is worse than mine.
It's trauma either way. Big trauma.
What about Scott Free's other two kids?
Scott Free.
Scott Free, they're okay. They kind of they hang out in the background. They're not really close to me. Mum's side, all of them, we're really close. They're two girls, and my other brother Matt, we're pretty rock and roll.
I like that.
One of them's a florist like me, Jenny, she's cool. My other sister Angela, she's into like spiritual healing, and she's just lovely. And Matt's a chef, and I'm a really good cook. I'm going to out chef him one day.
Oh, so you mentioned before we popped on about this working with other adoptees.
Yeah, so at the moment I'm just in the middle of training and building up a website. I do heaps of it on the side, like through our chat groups and our adoptive forums. And I've been speaking a bit on the radio, and I've been doing a few podcasts. And but what I want to take it another level further, because there's no adoptive counselling here. There's like 2 places in the whole of New Zealand, and that's like 6 million people.
It's not much better here. I mean,
what's going on, eh? It's like we're the forgotten race.
Yeah.
It's because people want babies and they're willing to pay.
They don't want the story out there that there's damage.
That's exactly right, eh? And they're still doing it. It makes me sick. You can't take a child and own it. There should be guardianship if your parents cannot look after you. But you should always have your lineage on your birth certificate, so you know where you came from and your roots.
Yes.
It's disgusting.
Yes.
Sarah and I learned that early in the history of our country, they did have that before the buying and selling really became a big thing, and that people always knew someone may take you in, but it was like, still, here's your lineage, here's who you are. And that
was in like 1855.
Yes.
I want to say there was a adoption, that was created, and then it wasn't until I want to say sometime in the 20th century, early 20th century, that it all changed and became so private. And
here, let's not tell you anything. You just appeared on the earth.
Yeah.
Isn't it interesting though how all the non-identifying information we receive is all very similar? She was beautiful. She was athletic. She was musically gifted. Smart. Yes. She was very smart. Like, wow.
All these great things all of us have.
And yet,
But also, I think largely if you look behind every single one of those laws that was invented, you've got religion at the back of it, and the crown, and this indoctrination of the state who came through and suddenly said, oh, you're a dirty whore, so you can't have your child. Oh, oh no, we want it. Brilliant. That's a good way. Let's make her feel so disconnected. But you know what? We've got coffers deep with money in our churches where we could just take that woman, provide home and care for her, help her have her baby, look after her, maybe take her baby for 6 months or a year, but she can come and get it anytime and we'll just love her and look after it and bring it up. But no, let's steal it, call her a whore, and basically change all the documents, which is against the law.
Shame, shame, and shame.
Yeah, it's just disgraceful, isn't it? And then that shame carries through to us because we're illegitimate and we're bastards and we're not supposed to be here really. And and then we have to buy into this rhetoric of being grateful for being taken in by strangers. My God, it's human trafficking.
We're always trying to prove our legitimacy too throughout the life. I feel all of us, every adoptee we've talked to, you're trying to prove I'm here, I'm important, but I have to lay low. It's just very complicated. I love how you approach it and what you're saying.
Yeah, and I think too, you can't speak out or approach it because you get labeled as angry or
right.
My adopted friends the other day said to me, what is your problem about adoption? And she goes, you seem to go on about it a lot. And I went, yeah, well, I kind of think it's a bit of a fucking issue taking babies, wiping them clean and giving them to strangers. And my lineage's gone for my children. If I die tonight, my son's not going to have that on my certificate or my death certificate. I belong to these people who took me. I'm not a marshal. I don't belong to them. I want my DNA footprint reinstated on this planet, and it's a human right. I can change my sexuality and have a dick tomorrow if I want, and the government will just write that down willy-nilly, but I'm not allowed my name back. Are they seriously on crack? And she said to me, oh, you were brought up fine. I know your parents and you should just be grateful. And I just went, oh, you know what? Let's block and delete you.
Bye.
And she's a prostitute as well, so work it out. Hello. The reason you're doing that is because you've got no love and self-worth because you're adopted. Hello.
Oh, she was adopted too, your friend.
Yeah.
She hasn't come out of the fog, so to speak. It sounds like which is a danger. I mean, you obviously went through that at 7 years old. That's amazing.
Yeah.
You were out of the fog at 7, but it takes so many people a lot longer to get there when you kind of wake up and go, wait a minute, I've been mind fucked for my whole life. But it takes some people a lot longer. So,
well, like Andy,
it's a safer place to be, to not question it, to just go along with it. That's a safe place to be. You don't then question your entire existence.
Yeah, correct. Andy Stanley from the Adoption Files. She's doing well, she's got a massive podcast, but she's doing a series at the moment on is adoption a cult? And I was like, oh yeah, there you go. It is. It's a cult.
Yeah, that's an interesting take on it. I'd like to see.
A religious cult, and we're all brought into this indoctrination. This is what happens. This is the narrative. This is the rhetoric. Don't step outside the square or you will get bashed. We're not changing the law. We don't care. Keep rolling out the babies. And let's, what we should do now is let's create a war so we can get more babies and just go and steal them from other countries. Brilliant.
Yeah.
It's madness.
Yeah.
It's truly madness. I'm curious, are your adoptive parents still alive?
Oh, they're dead, thank God. It's such a blessing. The greatest day of my life.
And what about the adoptive sisters you grew up with?
Yeah. So, yeah, I only talked to 2 of them. Strained at best. I haven't told them about my book. They don't know I do podcasts. They haven't heard my things on the radio, kind of because they just thought mum and dad were lovely and, oh, we were so lucky. And I'm like, no, I've never felt lucky. It's just kind of get over it again. And I'm not going to get over it actually. And I'm I'm not sitting here going, I'm angry that I was adopted. I'm angry at the system. I'm angry at the state. I'm angry at the churches that actually are still not held accountable. Like, for example, the Salvation Army over here, they've just run away and hid for the hills. They know they're in trouble. And all of a sudden, there's all these fires and floods and all the record officers.
So many floods at these offices.
Fires. Yeah, we hear this a lot.
And it's, you did this. And do you know what, legally, because I've been looking into the law behind it, legally, you have to have a lawyer present when you are relinquishing your child. You have to be given rights. You have to be lucid and sign paperwork. And you're allowed 10 days after that to change your mind. Now, none of these women were given any of those options or rights. My mother never had a lawyer. I was stolen from her. She was hemorrhaging, covered in blood, and I was ripped away. She never even looked at my face, touched me, held me. Then they go and put me in a hospital for 16 days on my own, screaming my head off. And Barbara Sumner, one of our amazing adoptive writers over here from Tree of Strangers, she's epic. She said one of the nurses in the hospital told her one day, you know when a baby's ready for placement because they stop crying. I mean,
Oh my God.
I mean, because we just give up.
Yeah.
And where does that trauma go? It stays in your cells and it stays in your body until
the baby gives up. It gives up crying for attention. That's
correct.
God.
It's like Stockholm syndrome, isn't it? So you get
Yeah.
put in the other person's arms and you go, well, I may as well just shut up and be grateful. Thanks. Awesome. Isn't this wicked? What's this going to be like as you bandy me around all your friends? Look at my new baby. It's not your baby. Put me down. And then they take you to the doctor and go, oh, there's nothing wrong in our family. You're like, you could kill me. You don't know. I'm adopted. Tell him I'm adopted. No, she's mine. What mental health issues have we got going on, eh?
Crazy.
My brain's like,
tell us
on
about
fire,
your
yeah.
book so we can link to, we could, this is just so great. This whole conversation is amazing. But do you have your book?
My book, I wrote my book because I was going to do my big book. So my mother and me, she said to me, I can't write. And I said, I don't care. Write your story from when you gave me away. And I think it's really helped her.
What was your name, by the way? What did she name you?
She didn't name me. So the nurses in the hospital called me Lisa. Awesome. That's stylish, eh? Lisa as well, not even Leeza or anything fancy. Lisa Mary Clark. Then I'm Angela Joy Marshall. Then my adoptive mother, before I started school, listen to this. In the back of the car, she goes, hey, I'm going to change your name. You can change it to Anne or Anna because Angela sounds like a prostitute. And I went, oh, that's interesting, isn't it? I don't know
Nice.
what it is. But when I found out when I was like 15, I was like, wow, it's insane because people were calling me Angie and she thought it sounded like a whore.
Oh, God.
Hello. So I've had so many names. You can call me whatever you like. Now I'm Annie because I hate being called Anne. And Annie O, it's like my short name. And I'm actually legally getting that changed at the moment through Parliament when I get my birth certificate reinstated with my natural parents' names, and my name will be changed forever to Annie O. Done.
You're doing your name. Yeah.
Yeah. And so my book, so I said to Mum, you write your story, I'll write mine. What I want to do is get the big book, and it's called The $1 Baby, because when my mum left the hospital, they made her pay $1 to get out of hospital and gave her a slip of paper for the paperwork. Now, I'm sorry, no counselling, no cuddles, no help, no love. $1. So when I met her, she gave me the $1 back, and I've still got it.
She kept the $1.
She kept it and gave it to me, which I was like, that's awesome. Thanks. I'm worth a bit more than that now. And there's GST.
Yeah.
Wow.
There wasn't GST before. So I've got the $1 right
Look
here.
at that.
And do you have the receipt from your adoptive mom?
It. My flipper, she gave it to me and my wallet got stolen because I used to carry it with me everywhere. Anyway, so what I want to do is get my side of the story on one side of the book and then have 16 blank pages, because 16 days I was in the hospital, and I never knew I was in the hospital for 16 days until the other day when I got my extra files back, because I didn't know that you could get more files than the files that they were keeping from you, from the files that they're keeping from you, and the floods and the fires from the files. So I found out that I was in the hospital for 16 days, and then I found out that my mum had lied to me, because I came straight away to pick you up, as soon as you were born. It's like bullshit.
Right. No.
I got a tattoo on my arm, 16 days.
Look at that. I like the symbolism. Yeah.
And it's quite a good talking point too, because then I can let more people know that adoption isn't great. So then it's too hard to write my big book because I'm a bit dyslexic and I'm not very good at writing. So I'm trying to find a ghostwriter to help. And you could flip the book over and have mum's side, and then 16 black pages, then my side.
It's
So
really, it's a creative, great way to
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah, because I wanted to really show people that severance between the bond being ripped apart and just two complete stories. We're not amalgamated. We weren't until we met, which I was 21 by then. I mean, that's terrible, meeting your mother at 21 and trying to form a relationship with them. So then COVID came, and I sat on the couch one afternoon, and my husband was building. He was allowed to go out, and I just got this massive big whiteboard, and I just wrote all these blocks down. And then I thought, I'm just going to break it down and do all the triggers that we have as adoptees, all the triggers about your records, your mental health, the crown, the church, religions, taking a baby. You can't, when I was little, mum said, I'm going to go and get a puppy, but we can't pick it up for 10 weeks because you're not allowed to take it away from its mother. And I'm like, well, but how come you can do that to a baby? Because
Right. How can you do that to a baby? Put them in a room and drug them. I can't.
Otherwise they're called crazy dogs, right? So
yeah, right.
I'm a crazy dog. So my book is just filled with really basic, succinct, concise triggers that we all feel across the board. And it's not about a good or bad adoption. It's about, you can have wonderful adoptions. You can have wonderful adopted parents, and you can love them more than the parents that you've met, but don't steal us and wipe our identities. That's, I suppose, the main point that I'm getting across.
Well, and even the most wonderful, you're going to have the triggers. You're still suppressing, you're still traumatized.
Yeah.
Still going to have relationship issues, self-worth issues. I mean, this is great. You're getting this out there.
Yeah. And I think it's such a good little titsy book that you can
Let's
read.
see. Do you have a copy of it right with you right now?
Yeah.
Let's see it.
Titsy book. I love that.
I love that.
Great. Look at that with the card.
Where can we get it?
Amazon and online. I can post you a copy. There's hard copies, but if you just go onto Amazon.
Okay.
We'll post the link
for
our listeners.
And that's my brother's drawings. Gorgeous.
I love that.
He's a graffiti artist in Auckland.
Listeners need to go to YouTube to see this, because this is beautiful.
Yes.
I actually want to.
Or buy the book.
I
yeah,
actually
that's
want
great.
a little YouTube animated thing. It's my youngest son. He's an animator. Look, the death of the Adoption Act.
This is great.
Yeah, we're going to post the link.
Oh,
Annie, you are a breath of fresh air. I just love meeting you.
And you have two friends right here.
Yes.
Yay. And anytime you want to come to New Zealand, just get on that plane.
Well, we might.
Be careful what you put out there. We might take you up on that.
Come on.
Sarah and I would like to do a road show. We might need to be hosted. So there you go.
Yes.
My God, I have to come with you. Follow you around.
Oh my God. We love it. We need you. We have the three of us would have fun. I have a feeling.
I think so too.
You have to do that.
Annie, you're awesome.
Thank you so much, Annie. Loved meeting you. Go keep the fight. Kick ass in Parliament. This is awesome.
You remind me of Liz Harvey. Liz is doing the work in the Parliament in London. The same thing.
Oh,
so find her on Twitter, Liz Harvey. She's doing the same. You two should connect because she's doing the same thing.
Yeah, we need to do it globally, don't we?
Yeah.
Yes.
Bash the doors down till they listen.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Thank you so much. So lovely talking to you.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
I'll see you in
And
New Zealand on our road tour,
we'll
right?
see you
Yes.
soon. Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Can't wait.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye, girls.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.